Today in Flex in the City, we interview Steve Bernat from One Group Solutions. And Steve talks why titles are less important than harnessing the collective and why passion and purpose are part of the revolution. All that happening right now in Flex and the City.
Hello, everybody. This is Rachel Treese on Flex in the City. And today we have our very first Luxembourger on Flex in the City. Schöne gute Nachmittag, Steve. Wie is it? Steve is the founding partner at One Group. Nice to see you, Steve.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome, Steve. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, Steve, and how you came to be the founding partner of One Group. And I'm very curious because you have a slight Irish accent when you speak English. So you need to tell me and the listeners a little bit more about where that came from.
Well, that's what a lot of people are telling me. But the funny story is that I've never actually left Luxembourg. I'm born in Luxembourg. Family's in Luxembourg since a few generations. Always lived in Luxembourg. Where do I have my accent from? I don't know. Probably just working in this industry and working with a lot of Irish, American, British, and just somehow I've picked up a funny accent.
Very good. So tell us a little bit about how you came to be doing what you're doing today, Steve.
Well, so I'm 42 years old now. I'm married and I got a son at the age of 16. As I said, I'm a Luxembourger and never left Luxembourg. The funny story is my family is here for many generations and probably represents very well how the Luxembourg economy has evolved over the past 100 years. My great-grandfather, he was a miner. My grandfather, he was working in the steel industry. My dad has worked for the Spurcase. And then when I finished school, as so many Luxembourgers, thought I had to work for the government. So I started at the Ministry of Education. I probably would have had a job for my life, but then I thought I need something with a bit of a more international flavor. And that's how I got into the funds industry. And that was back in 1998.
And who was the first company you worked for, Steve?
That was a management company at the time owned by one of the big German banks, Hypo-Vereinsbank.
Okay.
So it was international, yes, not that international at the time, but it was probably still the closest to home, and probably language at the time I could speak best, which was German. After that, I've moved to State Street, and I still remember, well, at the time, certainly my English wasn't as good as it is today. When I was driving to work, I was thinking about the way I could say certain things. So that was certainly challenged initially, but it's gotten better very fast.
Very good, very good. So you're now in the world of entrepreneurship as the founding partner of One Group. So I'm very curious, what really motivates you and what are your core values, Steve?
Well, yeah, with my own company together with my business partner, Revel Wood, since 18 months now. And it's a lot of fun. It's obviously different compared to what we've done before. What motivates me? It's really working with people. It's the fun at work. It's exploring new things. It's coming up with new solutions. It's grasping opportunities. It's exploring new cultures, which my job has always allowed me to do, working with asset management clients from around the world. I'm passionate about building businesses, building brands, building teams. I know very well that no manager, no leader can ever be successful on his own. It always takes a winning team.
Absolutely. Talking about a winning team, one of the things that I found quite curious is that you have no job titles at One Group as such. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that works?
Yeah, that was a very conscious decision at the time. There is no CEO, there is no CEO or director. Having worked in big corporations for many, many years, I realized how much time that we've spent in the past on working on the next promotion, getting the next big title, which ultimately was looking back today was pointless, I find, and the time that often we waste on these things rather than just really focusing on the job or the challenge or the solution at hand. So it was a very conscious decision not to have any corporate titles. Now, the funny story is that when we officially went live and we all wanted to update our LinkedIn profiles, we've realized you couldn't update LinkedIn without a title. So we've decided that we would call ourselves partners. So all of us are partners in the business, which ultimately is true, because the way we've built the team as well, we wanted everyone to have an incentive. So everyone is part of an equity scheme at the company, and that goes for current employees as well as for future employees, because everyone needs a purpose. Everyone needs to have an incentive of building long-term relationships. And, looking at our industry, it was probably one of the biggest challenges that we've certainly had the last few years was staff turnover rates, which were very, very high. And that was obviously an issue that we wanted to avoid as well, a few years down the line, and hence why the incentive for everyone. But hey, we all partners in the business.
Very good. So you're very much a teal organisation. Frederick Laloux wrote the book about teal organisations, which is a very flat structure and a very collegiate and collaborative culture.
Correct. That's the way we're looking at it, yeah.
Fantastic. Steve, you've had a lengthy career in financial services. Who's been the most inspiring? Well, either in financial services or outside of financial services. Who's inspired you the most?
Well, good question. And it really depends on whether we're looking at it, within the financial services or outside of the financial services industry. Certainly outside of the financial services industry, and, looking more broadly, it's certainly people who've changed our world, people who've come up with solutions that maybe before we didn't necessarily think they were possible, like, Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, or Bill Gates and others. But then maybe more at a European level, people who've certainly always inspired me. I'm personally a big fan of Europe, of the EU. It's certainly those who've made this continent a better place. People like Robert Schuman, the founder, or even stay in Luxembourg, Jean-Claude Juncker, who's always fought to make the EU a better place. Looking at maybe a more local level and maybe, an industry level, it's certainly people who were there at the very start of our industry, the likes of a Jacques Elving or Freddie Brausch or Claude Kramer, who've worked very hard, I think, to make this little tiny country to become a very dominant player around the globe in this sector.
Well, it's an Auckland to be, so I'm also very, very proud. So thank you for acknowledging our Luxembourg leaders, Steve. Moving on to the culture of your organisation. So you've talked about it being teal. Is there anything else you'd like to add about, how you do things differently at One Group?
When we obviously decided to create One Group, you're obviously asking yourself the question, how can I be different in this sector? The number one thing that we've always come up with was the team. It's having an experienced team, a team passionate about what they do. And I think that is probably the main thing. It's not people who've joined One because we've promised them a big salary package, but it was really people who wanted to join this venture because they were passionate and because they wanted to be part of revolutionizing this industry. So yes, the experience is obviously very, very important, but then it's also the attitude. And that is something, well, you have that or you have it or you don't have it. It's people who prepare to go the extra mile. And well, they'll only go the extra mile if they like what they do, if they have fun at what they do. So that's something that we're very conscious of. So the team is extremely important. I'd say the only other thing that I may mention in relation to your question, how are we different as an organization? Team comes first. And second is certainly the way we're offering solutions. So we, both Revel and I, we don't believe in a one size fits all approach or I want to be everything to everybody, but it's more about how can we offer solutions where our clients have a feeling that we add value right from day one.
Fantastic. And I love the term that you're using about the revolution, which really echoes what we want to do at FTS Global and the Henker Institute about making financial services a better place to be. So you're a Manco, Steve. Could you explain to your mum what a Manco is?
Well, let me put it that way. I've tried it a million times. I've never succeeded. And I think as most of us do, we've just given up and we just say, I'm working for a bank. And now she thinks, oh, I've actually created my own bank, which clearly I haven't. But maybe a funny story I have there is, I remember that very well. I was in my early 20s. My car broke down and my granddad had to drive me to work, and I was working for this German management company at the time here in Kirchberg, when Kirchberg was still almost empty. I think Auchan had just opened up, and I just remember that the next day apparently went and talked to my dad, and he said something is wrong. I drove Steve to work yesterday, and he keeps telling us he's working for a bank. I don't think he's working for a bank, because he couldn't see a teller, or he couldn't see the bank. The bank, as he knows the bank, he was saying, I don't know if this is a bank. I don't know how they're making money.
It's curious, isn't it? It's curious. No, even my mum thinks I'm a banker, and I'm nothing to do with banks. So. Steve, looking towards that revolution and that passion that you and Revel have, what do you think? What's your prediction for the future of financial services? You know, we're still coming through COVID. What's the future of this industry look like?
Look, I think if we're looking ahead, clearly, you know, everything is being more digitalized going forward. And clearly, when we founded One, that was our key focus as well. How can we create the next generation of fund governance service providers? So our focus on technology was great right from the beginning. Obviously, we had the advantage of starting from scratch. We started with a blank sheet of paper. If you have a great team of experienced individuals passionate about what they do, the mistakes we may have made in the past, it was pretty easy for us to create a very efficient solution built on state-of-the-art technology. I think the crisis is just accelerating that. And we've seen it in the last few months. We all gotten used to use Zoom. We're not on conference calls anymore. In fact, I think for months again, I was on a conference call probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I just found it so strange that I couldn't see the other person. So I think we're just not going to have any conference calls anymore. I hope we're going to meet more again in person going forward. But certainly these are tools that are here to stay, and well, there's more to come.
Very good. So, Steve, how would you describe to somebody listening your own leadership style? What is Steve Bernat's leadership style?
I think I said earlier, you know, even with the success, I've never forgotten about what leads to success, and that's a winning team. So I think I've always surrounded myself with experienced, committed, like-minded people who are passionate about what they do, who are dynamic, who are driven by the desire to add value to our clients. So making sure that your team understands the vision for your business, that they understand how they can contribute to making it a success. I think these are all things that are very important. I always say you can't have happy clients if you don't have a happy team. And that's probably also why I never forget about having fun at work too.
Absolutely. I was going to use, if you weren't going to say it, Steve, I would have used the word fun, because that's definitely the energy that you and Revel certainly bring. You talked about some Luxembourgish leaders earlier, Steve, that, you know, people that had an impact on you. If you were to be sort of leaving a legacy to, you know, young Luxembourgers who maybe are leaving school or university and thinking of going to work for the government, what would you be telling them? What would you be advising them?
Think about what the job is that you want, what is important to you professionally, but also in your personal life. When you've figured that out and you are in an organization that you like, but you may not be in the job that you like, well, just ask for that job. I've had that experience when I was at Citibank many years ago, and I went to one of those leadership courses, and one of those senior managers at the time told us, if you want a job, just go and ask for it. So, and that course took place in New York. Next week I was back in Luxembourg. I thought, well, that's a great idea. I've never thought about that. And I really I was in operations for the first 12 years of my career, and I wanted to get into kind of business development, client delivery role. So I just called the global head of sales and I said, "Hey, Richard, I would love to join your team." Well, the man, of course, didn't know who I was. I was this little guy in Luxembourg, and he just thought that my approach was interesting. And he thanked me and obviously said, "Well, currently there's no role on the team, but I'll keep you in mind." Well, was it coincidence or not? But 2 or 3 months later, we met at a client event, and I had to do like a 5-minute presentation or so. And I just remember that he spotted me and he came over and said, "Are you the guy who called me 3 months ago who wanted a job on my team?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." "Oh, I thought you're going on stage now and you're giving a presentation." And I said, "Yeah, well, you need to impress me." So the pressure was on. I did my 5-minute presentation, and he came back and he said, "When do you want to start?"
So the moral of the story is, if you want something,
ask for it and then go for it and be the best at it, or be the best at your job. So work hard. If you want to be successful, that's the other thing. You want to be successful. Nothing comes for free. It is hard work, and yes, we all want to have good balance between private life and personal life and our work life. That is certainly important as well. But still, you want to achieve something. You want to have success. Well, you do need to work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only concur with that, Steve. I can only concur.
And probably the other thing is sometimes you need to take a little risk. There's a lot of people who are just very comfortable in their position, and well, they don't make a move into another role or to another company. Sometimes just take a little risk. I remember when I moved from a big corporation into a much smaller firm, Luxembourg based only. Many people didn't understand me why I was doing that, because it was like kind of big corporation, good company, small company, bad company. While my experience was a totally different one.
Interesting, very interesting. So, when you're not doing what you're doing at work, Steve, and for the industry, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, family is obviously very important for me, especially having had to travel the last few years, probably almost 200 days a year, probably on 150 flights a year around the globe. It's something you can almost not say anymore today in today's environment, and I'm sure that's going to change in the future. And I hope there's still going to be some traveling at least. But certainly when I'm at home, I like to spend time with the family, be it at home or be traveling. With the family, I'm a big traveler, and I'm very much interested in exploring new cultures. I like to go to places where maybe not everybody has been to, places like Myanmar or Peru, which I find very, very interesting, very exciting places. Other than that, when I'm at home after work, I usually play tennis with my 16-year-old once a week. But I'd love to say I'm golfing as well from time to time. But I haven't done it for the past 2 years, so I won't even mention it. But yeah, it's spending time with the family. Well, probably enjoying good wine.
Enjoying good wine. And do you have a favorite wine, Steve?
Well, there is many. Certainly good Riesling from Luxembourg, or when it's red wine, it's certainly good Bordeaux.
A good Bordeaux. And if you were to choose a favorite Luxembourgish wine, what would it be? The Riesling, which Riesling would you?
Probably going to be Abidur.
Abidur, the famous Abidur. Absolutely. And what is it about Abidur's wine and his leadership that you admire?
I've done a number of wine tastings with him. It's probably the passion again. So he's very passionate about what he does, and I just like people who are passionate about what they do.
Steve Bernat, thank you so much for bringing passion to this interview on Flex in the City this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Vielmals merci.
Well, I thank you. Merci vielmals.
Thank you.
You just listened to Flex in the City. Catch us on our next episode.